Um, and then we are going to proceed with our program. We are elephant happy and hippopotamus glad that you are here tonight or this afternoon. We're just really so delighted to have you with us. Just to let you know, um, well, so let me introduce myself. So I'm the Reverend Vernon K. Walker. I have the privilege of being the program director of the Communities Responding to Extreme Weather, or CREW. And this event is brought to you in part by CREW as well as Massachusetts Peace Action. And we'll hand it over to a little bit to Brian to do a welcome from Mass Peace Action. But essentially, what CREW is, we are an organization that helps prepare communities in an equitable and sustainable way to become climate resilient to the threats of extreme weather, hurricanes, floods, heat waves, etc. So we're based out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I also want to mention that we will have a Q&A. And if you have questions, do put them in the chat. We want you to hold your questions until the end. And I promise you, we will try to get to them. And we will do our very best. So again, we want to welcome you to this event. Originally, this event was supposed to happen on September 28th, but Hurricane Ian had knocked out the power in Cuba, which is another example of extreme weather, and knocked out the power for 11 million people in Cuba, and we were unable to do it. So we're so glad to have Jessica Fernandez Castañas with us, who will present to us about Cuba's plan and a future to resilient to climate change. And we have a interpreter who Brian Garvey will introduce. And I'm going to introduce Brian Garvey now. Brian Garvey is the Associate Director of the Massachusetts Peace Action. And I'm going to hand it over to him to introduce himself, and he is also our moderator tonight, and we thank him for being our moderator. And also, we will send a follow-up email with this recording, so do not worry about that. And we do have, as we mentioned, we do have a translator, and I'll leave it to Brian to introduce Ramon. With that, again, welcome. Certainly, you're literally anywhere in the world, but you decided to spend some time with us. So we're so glad about that. And I'm going to hand it over to Brian Garvey now to take it away with the program. It's in your hands now, Brian.
And thank you very much, Vernon. As Vernon so kindly said, my name is Brian Garvey. I'm the Assistant Director here at Massachusetts Peace Action. If this is your first time at a Mass Peace Action webinar, we do these all the time. But Massachusetts Peace Action, to just say a little bit about us, we are the largest grassroots peace organization in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and part of the Peace Action Network we have. So no matter where you are, if you're in the States, there is likely a Peace Action affiliate near you. We're part of a big network. And we work on peace issues really across the spectrum. Like nuclear disarmament, ending wars in the Middle East, ending sanctions. But another thing that we work on is the connections between climate change, or pending climate catastrophe, as I like to call it, and militarism. We see these issues as inextricably linked, both because of opportunity costs, because every dollar that you spend on militarism, on making more bombs, more ships, more warplanes, is a dollar that you cannot spend on what is perhaps the greatest threat to humanity, which is pending climate change because of man-made causes. So it's both because of those opportunity costs, and also because the US military is, as an institution, the largest contributor to greenhouse gases on planet Earth. So directly, the militarism of the United States, which we spend almost $1 trillion on every year, is pumping carbon into the atmosphere and warming the planet, which has an effect on US citizens, but it has an even greater effect on our brothers and sisters in the global South, many of whom are dealing with pending climate catastrophe, as I said, and it's right at their doorstep. They're feeling the effects of it right now. And also another connection between climate change and militarism is that more extreme weather, like what Vernon was talking about, and changing climate patterns creates more conflict. It makes people move from their homes because the land can no longer sustain them. And that makes war more likely. And it can feed a vicious circle that creates more conflict and creates more environmental destruction. So we need to break that cycle. And that's some of what we're going to be talking about tonight. But just to say one final word, one area where we work a lot on is ending the embargo against Cuba and normalizing relations between the US and our friends in Cuba. We have had an embargo, a blockade of Cuba that is now 60 years old. And one of the things that it is hampering us in is our ability to partner on this shared threat that is the changing climate, wildfires, stronger hurricanes, floods, things that we cannot solve on a country by country basis. This is a global problem, and if we have a hope at solving it, we need to partner with our friends in Cuba, our neighbors, just 90 miles off of our shores. So that's a little bit of, we're going to talk about what Cuba is doing to fight climate change and to prepare for climate change. So we're thrilled to have Jessica Fernandez Casañas with us tonight. But first, I want to introduce a person without whom we could not be doing this program, and that's our translator, Ramon Bueno. So I'm just going to turn it over to Ramon really quick. If you could turn your camera and your mic on and just tell us a little bit about yourself, because we want to know, and we couldn't do this without you, Ramon.
I'm turning the camera on.
Yeah, take your time. Whereas we're all struggling with technology these days.
All right, there we go. Thank you, Brian. You can hear me, right?
Hear you just fine, Ramon.
Okay. I'll be very brief since the main guest is the one that's coming after. I live in Somerville, Massachusetts, where I serve on the city's Commission on Energy Use and Climate Change. And for the last 15 years or so, I've been working on climate economics and the issues related to socioeconomic vulnerabilities and what equitable resilience means in the context that we're experiencing. Before that, I was a aerospace engineer, and then for many years in computer information systems and all that. So I'll be glad to be helping make this possible today. Thank you.
And we appreciate you, Ramon. Like I said, we couldn't do it without you. So we're really thankful that you're here with us. But without further ado, I want to introduce our main guest tonight, who we're honored to have. And that is Jessica Fernandez Casañas, who is the head of the Climate Change Department of the Ministry of Science and Technology and Environment down in Cuba. Just a little bit of background on Ms. Fernandez before we get started. She worked as a teacher before joining the Ministry of Science in 2017. She's participated in national and international events and meetings related to the issues of desertification, one of those things that we were talking about, a little tough to pronounce, but the land becoming more arid as a result of climate change, drought, disaster risk reduction, climate change, gender, and just on and on more. She has held responsibilities working on the Convention to Combat Drought and the coordination of the national reports to that convention. She collaborated in the evaluation and proposals of national policies, plans, and strategies, as well as national and international projects, including coordinating technical assistance at an international level for collaboration between Cuba and the European Union as part of the European Union's Euroclima plan. So Thank you for being with us, Miss Casañas, and I will turn it over to you for your presentation.
Hola a todos y todas, ¿me escuchan?
Can you hear me, everyone?
Sí.
Fine. Bien, en primer lugar quisiera agradecer la oportunidad de participar con ustedes en este importante evento. Agradecer a Brian y también a todos los organizadores, a Vermont, que también ha estado constantemente en intercambio con nosotros y muy interesados mutuamente en poder compartir con ustedes. Bueno, a Ramón, que va a ser mi traductor por estos minutos, aunque espero que podamos intercambiar mucho más próximamente.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this important event. And I want to thank Brian and Vernon and all the ones who were responsible for making this happen. And myself, I think that was just it.
Bien, en un contexto como el que acaba de mencionar Brian, nos encontramos también compartiendo los resultados de Cuba, que se encuentra en fase de recuperación de un fenómeno meteorológico que ha azotado la isla, el huracán Ian, precisamente que también fue impactado en los Estados Unidos. Uno de los tantos ciclones que ha estado dejando una huella bien marcada en nuestro territorio y con impacto para las personas, la economía nacional y los ecosistemas.
Along the lines of what Brian was talking about, Cuba has been currently in the recovery phase from a meteorological phenomenon that has hit the island, Hurricane Ian, recently. One of the many cyclones that have left the island with a well-marked footprint in our territory, with impacts on people, the economy, and ecosystems.
En estos momentos nos encontramos evaluando aún los daños provocados por el huracán, que seguramente han podido apreciar las imágenes en las noticias, en los noticieros y demás, y han sido devastadoras principalmente en dos provincias del país, pero una principal que ha sido Pinar del Río, y la otra es la Isla de la Juventud.
At this very time, at this very moment, the damage caused by cyclone, Hurricane Ian, is being it's under evaluation, which, as you can see in the images and in the news, has been devastating, mainly in the Pinar del Río province, but also in the municipality of Isla de la Juventud.
Y es en este contexto que también se suma el bloqueo, como bien se mencionaba hace un momento. Y bajo estas condiciones de los impactos de estos fenómenos, del cambio climático, las propias amenazas del cambio climático, que me dirijo también a ustedes con estas palabras y poder compartir todo lo que hace Cuba en materia de adaptación, mitigación y agradecer la oportunidad.
And it's in this context, and what Brian mentioned about the conditions of the embargo blockade, and under the conditions, the threats of climate change, that I'm addressing you at this conference, and I thank you for the interest and opportunity for Cuba to participate.
Bien, ¿y cómo construye Cuba o trabaja Cuba, ¿no?, por un futuro resiliente? Los tópicos que pueden ver en la pantalla será una especie de resumen que estaremos abordando el contexto del cambio climático en Cuba, las políticas climáticas en el país, especialmente qué es la tarea vida, que tal vez algunos de ustedes han escuchado hablar de ella, y algunos ejemplos sobre acciones, experiencias exitosas que hemos realizado en el país en materia de adaptación y de resiliencia.
So how does Cuba build and work towards a resilient future? I'll be making a summary of what you're seeing on the screen, which is the context for climate change in Cuba, the climate policies in the country, especially what is called Tarea Vida. More on that. Some examples of successful actions and experiences carried out in the country in terms of both adaptation and resilience, and the challenges.
Thank you. Bien, la comunidad científica cubana lleva décadas trabajando en la ciencia del cambio climático, perfeccionando y especializándose en diferentes áreas en las cuales los efectos del cambio climático están afectando a mediano y largo plazo.
So the Cuban scientific community has been working on the science of climate change for decades, perfecting and specializing in different areas in which the effects of climate change will be impacting in both the medium and in the long term.
Entre los resultados que ha demostrado la ciencia cubana sobre los cambios del clima ocurridos y ya proyectados se encuentran, como pueden ver, el incremento de la temperatura media anual. De igual modo, se ha experimentado una disminución de los regímenes de lluvia, eventos de sequía más frecuentes y prolongados, unas proyecciones del aumento del nivel del mar realizadas en la primera década del presente siglo que mostraron y muestran un ascenso de 29 centímetros para el 2050 y 85 hasta el 2100.
So among the results that Cuban science has shown about climate changes, both the ones that have occurred and projected are increased the average temperature of 1 degree. Well, the numbers on the screen, 1 degree, and where the values of the country's temperatures have risen and will since 1951. Similarly, a decrease in rainfall patterns, more frequent and prolonged drought events, and increasing trends of hurricanes with greater frequency and intensity, and projections of sea level rise that were made in the first decade of this century, which when they were updated for the later decades had a value of like 29 centimeters, that's about 11.5 inches for 2050, and about 95 centimeters, that's about 37 inches for 2100 respectively.
Bien, a su vez se reconocen como otros impactos del cambio climático en el país la transición hacia un clima subhúmedo tropical con repercusiones en algunas de las variables climáticas mencionadas con anterioridad, entre otras. La intrusión salina, la salinización de los acuíferos y los suelos, la erosión costera y los impactos asociados a las comunidades costeras producto de ese aumento del nivel medio del mar.
So in turn, the transition to a tropical subhumid climate with repercussions on, the mentioned climatic variables, among others, are recognized as impacts in our country. Saline intrusion, salinization of aquifers and soils, coastal erosions, and the impacts on coastal communities as a result of the sea level rise.
Es decir, al 2100 hasta el momento se espera que haya 21 asentamientos costeros, personas que van a estar afectadas. En general, esos asentamientos puede ser que desaparezcan, y hasta la fecha se trabaja con 35 asentamientos que ya van a estar amenazados o que están siendo afectados por esta situación.
Along the lines of the sea level rise, it's expected that by 2100, some 21 coastal settlements disappear, but generally to date, work is ongoing with 35 coastal settlements that are threatened by these conditions.
Una de las fortalezas que tiene nuestro país para la gobernanza y poder tomar acción en cuanto a la adaptación y la resiliencia ante los impactos del cambio climático ha sido realmente el trabajo conjunto entre la ciencia y el gobierno.
So it's strength of our country, Cuba, in terms of governance and taking action in the country's adaptation and resilience, to the impacts of climate change has been the joint work between science and government.
Y es ahí donde surge el macroproyecto sobre peligro, vulnerabilidad y riesgos asociados al ascenso del nivel medio del mar y la práctica de informar sus resultados al más alto nivel de dirección del país, es decir, al presidente, y fue lo que llevó esta ciencia a la toma de decisiones.
So that's what led to the macro project studies on the danger of vulnerability and vulnerability and risk associated with the rise in sea level, and also the practice of reporting its results of these studies to the highest level of management in the country, all the way to the president. And this has allowed the science to be taken into the decision making.
Ello es muestra, ¿no?, de por qué uno de los pilares del gobierno en Cuba actualmente está basado en la ciencia y la innovación.
Yeah, and this shows or demonstrates how and why some of the pillars of the government is based on science and innovation on this topic.
Los estudios realizados hasta la fecha y la interfase ciencia-gobierno han servido también para identificar y materializar estas políticas públicas de cambio climático en el país, donde el eje principal que va a articularlas es el Plan de Desarrollo Económico-Social hasta el 2030.
So scientific studies and the interface between science and government have served to be the basis for how public climate change policies have been developed and materialized in the country, where the axis the thing that articulates its implementation is the Economic and Social Development Plan by 2030.
Cabe destacar que la principal política del país en esta materia es el Plan de Estado para el Enfrentamiento al Cambio Climático, más conocido en nuestra sociedad como Tarea Vida, y que fue aprobado en 2017 por el gobierno.
So it should be noted that the country's main policy in this regard, in this matter, is the state plan to confront climate change, which is better known as in Cuba as Tarea Vida, life task, which was approved in 2017 by the government.
El Plan de Estado, desde su concepción, tuvo tres principios. Uno, dedicado a la salvaguardia de las personas, otro, vinculado más bien a la actividad del turismo, y un tercero, a la seguridad alimentaria, es decir, estableciendo sobre ello las prioridades en acciones y tareas, que es como se reconoce y establece su acción en la tarea vida.
So this state plan from its conception has three principles. One is the safeguarding of people, another is tourism, and then food security. And it's basing on them that the priorities and actions and tasks are organized.
Y es como se estructura a partir de 5 acciones estratégicas y 11 tareas, que incluye, además de las áreas priorizadas en las que se debe trabajar, acciones y sectores claves que deben trazar también planes de adaptación y mitigación al cambio climático en los periodos establecidos.
So this goal is structured into 5 strategic action, 11 tasks that range from the prioritized areas that mention the work that must be done to key action sectors, which climate change adaptation and mitigation plans must be drawn up and established periods.
Ello conlleva a que todos los sectores de la sociedad y todos los territorios, provincias, municipios, cuenten también con un plan de enfrentamiento al cambio climático, del cual deben rendir cuentas, es decir, brindar información sobre cómo va la implementación a la alta dirección del país.
And this implies that all sectors and territories must have a plan for coping with climate change, on which then they must be accountable for its implementation, how it's being carried out. They have to be accountable for the country's leadership on that.
Aun cuando para Cuba la prioridad está en la adaptación por la condición que tenemos de isla, ¿no? Y por ser y no ser un gran emisor de gases de efecto invernadero, hemos incorporado también a la tarea vida, en su acción número 8, la mitigación, y todo ello vinculado a las principales políticas del país, de manera que podamos lograr un desarrollo resiliente y menos intenso en carbono.
So even when for Cuba the priority is adaptation due to the island's status and not being a large emitter of greenhouse gases, it has also incorporated mitigation into the Tarea Vida project and its main policies to achieve resilient and less intense development in terms of carbon emissions.
La actual legislación del país establece como prioridad también estas prioridades del enfrentamiento al cambio climático y las obligaciones a cumplir por todas las instituciones y sectores del país, así como por la ciudadanía. En el 2002 fue aprobada esta nueva ley de medio ambiente y fue aprobada por el Parlamento cubano.
So the current legislation, environmental legislation, reflects these priorities for confronting climate change and the obligations to be fulfilled by both the government institutions and the citizens. And this was approved, I forget what you said, recently by the assemblies.
Se han creado también normas específicas para garantizar el cumplimiento de la tarea vida y reforzar de esta manera las acciones de conservación en algunos ecosistemas priorizados, como las playas, por su rol en la adaptación y para la economía del país. Además, algunos incentivos para la incorporación de nuevas tecnologías limpias y principalmente para las personas naturales, es decir, la importación de equipos, en este caso, de fuentes renovables de energía.
So in addition to that, specific norms and regulations are created to guarantee compliance with Tarea Vida, the Life Task project, and to reinforce the conservation action of some of the prioritized ecosystems, such as the beaches, due to their role in adaptation and also for the country's economy, and incentives for the importation of clean technologies, renewables, mainly also for just regular natural folks.
¿Y qué ha hecho entonces nuestro país hasta la fecha en materia de adaptación y resiliencia? ¿Qué papel han jugado las comunidades, las personas en estos empeños nacionales?
So what has Cuba done in terms of adaptation and resilience? What role have communities and individuals played in these national undertakings?
Bueno, como referí con anterioridad, las personas son uno de los pilares principales en los que se estableció la tarea vida, ¿no? Tratar de mantener y resguardar la seguridad de las personas. Parte de las experiencias exitosas que hoy nos han valido el reconocimiento en la región y en parte del mundo ha sido precisamente desarrollado por el Estado Mayor Nacional de la Defensa Civil, de conjunto con otras instituciones científicas en la reducción de los desastres naturales y salvaguardando también la vida de las personas.
So as mentioned earlier, these people are some of the main pillars on which the Tarea Vida is based. It's protection. And part of the successful experiences that have earned us, Cuba, recognition in the region and in parts of the world has been the work in disaster reduction that has been carried out by the general staff of the Cuban Civil Defense, together with scientific institutions.
Debido a la larga tradición de los impactos por fenómenos meteorológicos, sumado a los demostrados impactos del cambio climático, se han hecho más reforzada toda la atención y prevención a los desastres en nuestro país, en Cuba, con un amplio componente educativo.
The long tradition of impacts from meteorological phenomena, adding proven impacts from climate change, have reinforced all the attention to and the prevention of disasters in the country with a broad educational component alongside.
A través de diferentes proyectos nacionales e internacionales que ha dirigido la Agencia de Medio Ambiente perteneciente a nuestro ministerio y también la Defensa Civil, se han creado diversas herramientas de trabajo para la toma de decisiones que contribuyen a la prevención de riesgos de desastres por eventos hidrometeorológicos extremos y el incremento del nivel del mar.
So through national and international projects directed by the Environment Agency of the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Environment, as well as the Civil Defense, various work tools have been created for decision-making in the prevention of disaster risks due to hydrometeorological events and sea level rise.
Así también como para la evaluación de daños ambientales y sociales.
As well as for the evaluation of environmental and social damages.
De ahí que surjan nuevos centros de capacitación para la reducción de riesgos de desastres que se han tratado de llevar a todas las provincias y municipios del país y que ahora se refuerzan con una mirada más integral, donde se consideren no solamente los peligros y vulnerabilidades por el ascenso del nivel del mar, sino que también incluyan la adaptación al cambio climático.
The formation of training centers for disaster risk reduction that has been taking place in provinces and municipality is now reinforced with a comprehensive view that considers the dangers and vulnerabilities due to sea level rise in coastal zones.
En esto se capacitan tanto a los gobiernos locales, es decir, a las personas y funcionarios de los gobiernos locales, a las instituciones y organizaciones de la sociedad civil y a todas las comunidades que se encuentran en esta zona costera. Y en otras áreas del país también.
These efforts, local governments, the people who run them, and other institutions and civil society organizations and communities have been trained.
Esta ha sido una de las experiencias que se han compartido en la región del Caribe por los resultados positivos que ha tenido en nuestro país.
And with the positive results that this has had in our country, this has been one of the experiences that have been shared throughout the Caribbean region.
Otra de las acciones que podemos considerar como exitosas en términos de adaptación basada en los ecosistemas llegó a través del proyecto Manglar Vivo, que aunque fue implementado en las provincias Artemísima y Abeque, principalmente en áreas costeras que sufrían serias afectaciones por los impactos de los fenómenos hidrometeorológicos y la intrusión salina, también podemos decir que se replica a otras áreas del país, ¿no?
So another successful adaptation, ecosystem-based adaptation actions came from the Living Mangrove Project, which was implemented in Artemisa and Mayabeque provinces, mainly in coastal areas that were very seriously affected by impacts of hydrometeorological phenomena and saline intrusion, but it's been taken to other regions of the country.
De hecho, en estos municipios, es decir, en Artemísima y Abeque, también fueron algunos de los municipios afectados, de las provincias afectadas por el huracán Ian recientemente, y algunas de estas soluciones permitió que tuvieran menos afectaciones por el huracán.
And as a matter of fact, it was precisely in these provinces of Artemisa and Mayabeque that some of the stronger impacts of the recent hurricane took place. And it was these solutions have helped ameliorate the impacts that took place there.
El proyecto tuvo como uno de sus principales logros la capacitación y el vínculo con las comunidades en la propia implementación, creación del proyecto.
And the project, as one of the main achievements of it, was that the training and linking of the communities to the implementation of the project itself.
Algunos de los resultados fueron, por ejemplo, la validación de un paquete tecnológico adecuado a las condiciones del país, de acuerdo a la restauración de los manglares y el ecosistema, la reducción de la cuña salina y la salinización de los acuíferos, introducción de estos resultados en instrumentos de planificación del territorio.
So the results were numerous, such as the validation of a technological package that was adapted to the country's conditions in the restoration of mangroves and in the ecosystem, the reduction of the salt wedge, and the salinization of aquifers.
Así como otros tantos resultados que van desde la conservación de estos ecosistemas costeros y la movilización de recursos financieros y tecnológicos para las comunidades en función de su desarrollo y resiliencia.
Other kinds of results include, the conservation of coastal ecosystems, and the mobilization of financial and technological resource for the communities based on their development and resilience and their active participation in the communities.
Este proyecto y otros que también se realizan en el país son parte de las soluciones naturales que promueve la tarea RIDE para la adaptación en otras comunidades amenazadas y vulnerables, no solamente por el ascenso del nivel medio del mar, sino también por la sequía y otros eventos hidrometeorológicos extremos.
So these results are part of the solutions promoted for adaptation in other communities that are vulnerable the rest of the country due to sea level rise and these other conditions.
Otro de los proyectos aprobados recientemente fue en el 2020 un proyecto que se financia a través del Fondo Verde para el Clima y que se suma a los tantos esfuerzos también que hace el país en materia de adaptación y mitigación al cambio climático. Y este está más enfocado a la reducción de vulnerabilidades en la zona costera, es decir, el proyecto Mi Costa, y el otro, que también fue aprobado en el mismo año, se basa más en la resiliencia del sector agroalimentario en varias de las comunidades del país.
So in 2020, some projects approved under the Green Climate Fund were approved and launched, which add to the country's efforts in adaptation and mitigation to climate change. One of them was more focused on reducing the vulnerabilities of the coastal zones, while the other one, also recently, it's focused on the resilience of the agriculture food sector in several communities around the country.
Su implementación generará entonces múltiples beneficios a las comunidades, donde pueden ver también las cifras en pantalla, pero una vez más pensamos que este sería el eje impulsor de otras iniciativas que también va a crear capacidades locales y la participación de grupos vulnerables en la aplicación de soluciones verdes y sostenibles en diferentes sectores económicos que son de prioridad para el desarrollo local.
So the implementation of this, as shown on the screen, would generate multiple benefits for the communities. But once, and again, it will be the driving force behind the initiatives: the creation of local capacities, the participation of vulnerable groups, applying green and sustainable solutions in the fundamental economic sectors for development locally.
Otras acciones destacadas en la implementación del Plan de Estado o Tarea Vida en esta etapa han sido las que tienen que ver con la conservación de la biodiversidad y los ecosistemas, la creación de grupos de voluntarios para el monitoreo de las especies, la aplicación de nuevas tecnologías y herramientas digitales que permiten brindar un mayor conocimiento a las personas y a los sectores.
So, other notable actions in the implementation of this Tarea Vida initiative at this stage has been the conservation of biodiversity and ecosystems, and the creation of groups of volunteers to monitor species, the application of new technologies and digital tools to provide great knowledge to people and sectors.
Pero tenemos, como le hemos dicho hasta el momento, aún persisten algunos retos y tenemos que trabajar en diferentes proyecciones que ya han sido aprobadas recientemente hasta el 2025.
But we still have, the challenges, and this is how they're reflected in the new work projections until 2025 under Tarea Vida.
Y ahí pueden ver algunas en las que vamos a estar trabajando durante todo este periodo, principalmente en la gobernanza climática a todos los niveles, con un foco principal en lo local, es decir, en los municipios, como parte de las nuevas políticas de descentralización.
So as you can see, one of them is to continue working on climate governance at all levels, with a main focus on the local angle, on the local context, as part of the new decentralization policies.
Mayor uso y perfeccionamiento de la ciencia, la innovación y la tecnología, buscar soluciones que puedan ser más innovadoras, adecuadas, por supuesto, al contexto nacional y nuestras circunstancias particulares.
The greater use and improvement of science and innovation and technology, and searching for innovative solutions that are appropriate to the context and the local context and natural circumstances.
El empoderamiento de la sociedad, las comunidades en temas de adaptación y mitigación al cambio climático, hacer un mayor uso de las ciencias sociales para determinar los problemas que persisten en las comunidades y sus posibles soluciones.
So the empowerment of society and of communities in adaptation and mitigation to climate change, and the making of greater use of the social sciences to determine, the problems that persist in communities and possible solutions.
Igualmente debemos lograr una mayor articulación entre los sectores, establecer nuevos mecanismos de monitoreo para conocer cómo damos seguimiento a estas acciones de adaptación y mitigación y sobre todo dotar a la población de conocimiento y sabiduría respecto a cómo hacer frente a la crisis climática.
So also promoting greater articulation between sectors and territories, the establishment of monitoring, registration and verification mechanisms that allow follow-up to adaptation and mitigation actions at all levels. And I think that was it. Oh, and an important cross-cutting initiative across all the actions is providing the population and society with the knowledge and the tools to face the climate crisis.
Y bien, un poco para concluir, sabemos que nos queda mucho por hacer y estos son intercambios que para nosotros tienen mucho valor porque generan mayores conocimientos, oportunidades y poder establecer estas alianzas con ustedes para continuar trabajando en líneas tan importantes como las que pueden apreciar en pantalla.
So in the way of beginning to wrap up, much remains to be done in these exchanges, in these kinds of exchanges, to generate greater knowledge and opportunities to be able to continue working and collaborating on important things as you can see and mention.
Seguir reforzando todo lo que tiene que ver con la economía del cambio climático, buscando que se vea como una oportunidad y para poder emprender acciones más sostenibles, diseñar un modelo de desarrollo que permite y que considere la dimensión climática, haciendo a nuestros municipios y comunidades más resilientes. Y por último, fortalecer mucho más el conocimiento y la conciencia pública para adaptarnos a este clima cambiante y poder contribuir y desarrollarnos con menos intensidad en emisiones de carbono.
So in the economics of climate change, seeing it as an opportunity to undertake sustainable actions that are economically viable and providing social and environmental benefits, designing a local development model that considers the climate dimension, making municipalities and communities more resilient, and to continue strengthening the knowledge and public awareness and the intensive development of development to adapt to the changing climate, but also contributing to development that is less carbon intensive in terms of emissions.
Bien, y este podría ser el principio de otras muchas conversaciones, ¿no? Pero queremos agradecer también por su atención. Esperamos que se sigan generando y compartiendo otros espacios y experiencias que nos permitan lograr que nuestras comunidades sean más resilientes, compartir entre todas estas buenas experiencias. Yo creo que vamos a lograr este objetivo.
So this could be part of a greater number of conversations to have. And thank you very much for your attention, and we hope that we can continue creating spaces and experiences to allow to achieve more resilient communities, and forward to greater opportunities for dialogue and collaboration.
Gracias a todos. Gracias por la traducción también, y quedo atenta por si tienen algún comentario o alguna pregunta que hacer. Muchas gracias, Ramón.
De nada. Thanking everyone for their attention, and be glad to answer questions that may have.
And thanks so much, Ms. Casañas, for that great presentation. Oh, I already see a hand raised. I was about to say, yeah, please use the raise hand feature if you would like to ask our expert a question. And Sam, if you're there, perhaps you could give Claire the ability. I see that's Claire Goslin with the hand raised. If you could give her the ability to unmute so she can ask her question of Ms. Casañas.
Claire, you're set to go.
Well, I'm not hearing Claire, so maybe just in the couple of minutes that it might take us to figure out a little technology on our end, I'll ask an opening question, and that is that here in the United States, we have heard that in the wake of Hurricane Ian, the embargo is really preventing a lot of the building materials that are necessary for repair after that hurricane to get to Cuba. And I was wondering what the status of that was.
And before you go on, Brian, can you hear me? I finally figured out how, it's very different, the technology that we usually use. And I figured out all I have to do is hit on that microphone. But that's the question that is very related to my question as well. But perhaps for translation purposes, you should go ahead and translate that, and then I can say something after.
Thanks for your patience, Claire. I appreciate it.
No, thanks for your patience.
Jessica, ¿necesitas traducción o entendiste la pregunta?
Sí, por favor, si me pudieras ayudar con la traducción, es que también se escuchaba entrecortado, no comprendí bien. En lo que
anoté, que en Estados Unidos, en la secuela del huracán Ian, la condición del embargo, pues, ha prevenido, que materiales que puedan ser urgentes y necesarios en la isla, pues se ha hecho difícil o imposible que lleguen allá. Si puedes comentar.
Yo le voy a ceder en este caso la palabra a mi compañero, director también de Relaciones Internacionales de nuestro ministerio, de nuestra institución, porque él ha estado un poco más al tanto de cómo se ha manejado toda esta donación o estos apoyos de diferentes países a nuestro país a través de los expertos de IAN.
Bueno, como mencionaba Brian al principio, el impacto del bloqueo es profundo y tiene un impacto sobre toda la vida, tanto económica como política como social de nuestro país. Evidentemente, cuando el huracán Ian impactó la provincia más occidental de Cuba, comenzamos a recibir la ayuda internacional. Hubo un ofrecimiento del gobierno de los Estados Unidos que por una de las únicas veces fue aceptado y le dimos la bienvenida como un gesto en la dirección correcta en la normalización de las relaciones entre ambos países.
As was said, the impact of the blockade is profound, deep, and on its socioeconomic and life throughout the country. Ian was, particularly impactful in the Western province, and international aid was arriving, including an offer from the U.S., which was accepted as a welcome gesture in the right direction for, improve relations.
Es evidente que en estos 60 años, más de 60 años ya de bloqueo, nos hemos visto imposibilitados de acceder a tecnologías, a intercambio científico profundo con nuestro vecino, uno de nuestros vecinos más cercanos, y que, como nosotros lo vemos, sería una ecuación ganar-ganar en donde ambos hoy en día tenemos mucho que ofrecer, tanto los Estados Unidos como en el caso de nuestro país. Lamentablemente, durante la pandemia se evidenciaron los impactos negativos del bloqueo, donde nuestro pequeño país con limitados recursos tuvo que enfrentar vamos a decir, este flagelo, esta pandemia, y tuvo la oportunidad de desarrollar, gracias a los 60 años de nuestra revolución de ciencia, de innovación, de cuidado del medio ambiente, pero fundamentalmente en el cuidado de la salud de nuestra población, pudo desarrollar los proyectos vacunales, 5 de los cuales 3 lograron convertirse en vacunas e inmunizar a nuestra población.
Okay.
Por supuesto, población
Permíteme.
adulta y población infantil. Sí.
Yeah. I'm going to try here. So it was saying it's evident that in more than 60 years of blockade, it had been impossible to have access to various technologies and any kind of deep scientific exchange between the two countries, which are their closest neighbors. And it's sad. It's something that would have much to offer. A total win-win situation in this context. So it's regretful that even during the pandemic, the negative impacts from the blockade on a small country and its limited resources compounded facing the deep challenges. And it was only due to the science and innovation in environmental and health areas that allowed Cuba to develop vaccines, and three of 5 of them enabled the massive vaccination of the population. I think I got that.
Aspiramos, sí, vamos muy bien. Para finalizar, aspiramos a un futuro en el que el bloqueo sea levantado y ambas naciones podamos tener una relación normal entre nuestros pueblos y una relación de intercambio y de desarrollo y de cooperación mutua. Es la aspiración no solo de cubanos. Yo sé porque trabajé muchos años ahí en Washington, en nuestra oficina de intereses, que también es el deseo de muchos norteamericanos. Muchas gracias.
We aspire, we hope for a future lifting of the blockade that would make normal relations between the two countries possible, and the greater exchange and communication, mutual communications, which would help not only Cuba, but also the people in the United States, something which in my years in Washington, D.C., you know, I was able to witness. I think
so perhaps, Brian, I could just make a point.
Please do.
Okay, well, I appreciate all the comments that have been made by our Cuban friends, and that's exactly what we would like to see, is more cooperation between our countries. And we learned when we were in Cuba, I was part of the delegation that went down from Mass Peace Action, that there are so many materials, you know, basic things that you need in order to build some of the infrastructure that you cannot get because of the blockade. So that's one question. And the other is, I know that the blockade affects abilities to reach out to other countries as well, but I was wondering if some of your nearby neighbors in Latin America and the Caribbean, if you have been able to do any partnering with them on climate mitigation. And that's all.
Do I need to translate that, or did you understand that one? Hello?
Sí, Ramón, estaba tratando de entender la pregunta.
Deja ver si puedo resumir. Me pasó rápido. Mencionaba, dándole seguimiento a lo que se había dicho, que durante una visita en Cuba habían aprendido de los muchos materiales que se necesitan en cuestiones de infraestructura que no están disponibles por las limitaciones, o por lo menos en el nivel necesario, por las limitaciones del bloqueo, y que limitan también, y la pregunta es si eso también limita la habilidad, la capacidad de Cuba de, ¿cómo se dice?, colaborar con vecinos y otros países. Y esa era una pregunta, si han habido colaboraciones con países vecinos, etcétera. Creo que eso es lo que era la pregunta.
Sí. Mira, Ramón, para ser muy breve y facilitar la traducción, Cuba no da lo que le sobra. Cuba ofrece lo que tiene. Quizás no es mucho, pero lo ofrece de corazón y, por supuesto, busca incrementar los lazos de cooperación e intercambio con los países del área. No solo con el vecino del norte con quien estamos teniendo hoy esta videoconferencia, sino con el resto de los países de América Latina y el Caribe en el área de la mitigación, en el área de la adaptación. Por ejemplo, empresas cubanas están trabajando en el restablecimiento de playas en el Caribe, en el tema de los sargazos. Nos interesan los temas comunes de contaminación de plástico.
Okay, let me start. Cuba doesn't share or give what it has excess of, but what it offers, what it has, and it does so with heartfelt sentiment, and it does seek links and collaborations with neighbors, and not only with the greater neighbor nearby, the U.S., but also with other countries in Latin America in both mitigation and adaptation. So, for example, beach recovery. He mentioned sargazo. That's I forget what it's called. But anyway, that's what I got.
Algas, yes. Si tienen alguna otra pregunta.
Any other questions?
Oh yes, definitely. I just wanted to make sure that that you were finished with your answer there. Before I go to the next question, I just received a text message from Marianne Sara, who may be known to many of you, has worked in Cuban solidarity work for decades now. And she reminds me that I should announce, and it seems as good a time as any because we were just talking about the effects of the blockade, that Mass Peace Action is going to be doing monthly public demonstrations to call for an end to the blockade and normalization of relations between the United States and Cuba, calling for friendship between our two nations. And our next standout will take place on November 27th at 2 p.m. That's a Sunday, in multiple locations, one in the eastern part of Massachusetts in Harvard Square, Cambridge, and one in the western part of the state in Holyoke at the corner of Route 5 and Route 91. So we will be sending out information about how you can join us, and if you are so moved, please bolster our numbers and join us in making a public demand for an end to the blockade. So I just wanted to get that out, but next I want to turn the mic over to Karen Slater, who has a question.
Karen, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you should be able to.
And there should be a little, Claire was telling us about this a little bit, there should be a little bar if you move your mouse over the screen that has a little video and a little mic and with a line through it. You click that mic.
I think I got it.
There you go.
I'm new to Teams.
Yep, me too.
Excellent. I just want a quick comment. I'm a researcher in academia here and a longtime member of the July 26 Coalition of Boston. And I just want to salute you for your scientific presentation, the completeness, the attention to details. Venceremos. Gracias.
La persona hizo un breve comentario. Es una investigadora en temas académicos y miembro de la coalición de julio 26 de julio. Y básicamente envía un saludo y felicitación por una presentación con tanto buen detalle y bien presentada. Termino con Venceremos.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you, Karen.
And yeah, thank you for those kind words, Karen. I have another question, and I encourage people to raise their hands and, let's make this a discussion as much as possible. But you mentioned during your presentation the pending decree on climate change, and I think many of us here know that a new family code was just passed in Cuba just a couple of months ago, and that included a process of really going to the communities across Cuba for their really for their guidance as to what was going to be in that family code. I'm wondering if the decree on climate is going through that same process.
La pregunta que hace es, según entiende, se había mencionado un decree, una resolución pendiente sobre el cambio climático en Cuba, y haciendo referencia al código de familia que fue implementado recientemente, que tuvo el código de la familia, ¿no? Un proceso de participación y con las comunidades en cuanto a guías a lo que iba a ser el contenido. si se contempla algo parecido en lo que tiene que ver con el cambio climático.
Bien, de hecho, la ley que se acabó de aprobar en este año, la ley del sistema de los recursos naturales y el medio ambiente, llevó un proceso de consulta similar. Se comunicó a toda la población, se puso en un sitio web la propuesta de documento, se recibieron múltiples miles de comentarios a nuestra ley, la vigente, que ya incorpora con mucho detalle todo el tema ambiental, pero expresamente el climático con mucho más detalle que la ley anterior.
Okay, the recent law on environment and climate underwent a similar process of community consultation and questioning. There was things posted on web posting, and thousands of comments were received on topics that have to do with the environment and climate change along these lines presented. So yes, the process has been followed similarly.
Yeah, that's just always so interesting to us here.
En este caso, el decreto.
Hola.
Sí, sí, no sé si me escuchan, era para complementar. En el caso del decreto, el decreto de cambio climático está esperando, ya estamos esperando su aprobación, pero estamos esperando que concluya la consulta popular del decreto ley de zona costera, que está muy a tono con lo que se expresa en el decreto de cambio climático sobre el tratamiento de toda la población costera y los impactos de esas comunidades, precisamente a partir del incremento del ascenso del nivel medio del mar. Entonces, estamos esperando a esa consulta del otro decreto ley, que sí es bastante complejo en términos de las comunidades, de la población que vive en esa zona, y después entonces que ya se lleva a asamblea a aprobar públicamente.
The climate change decree that's pending, waiting approval, it's also waiting for the results of another popular consultation on coastal zones and on the numerous issues that folks have on the impacts on coastal populations on sea level rise. So there's like one waiting for the other.
Thanks. I know I saw a hand in the little participants window. Mary, you have the floor if you're able. Can you unmute yourself? So just, I know a lot of people are new to Microsoft Teams, so if you just move your mouse to the middle of the screen, a little bar will pop up. It has a camera and a mic with a line through it. Click that, and you'll be able to unmute yourself. But, or you can, oh, go ahead.
Oh, it's Sam. If you would like, you can also put your questions in the chat.
Oh, okay. Actually, Mary is reaching out to me and says that she's having a little bit of difficulty doing it because I think she might be on a tablet. But she just wants to remind me to thank the other voice that you were hearing. I don't think you got a chance to introduce yourself, but Ernesto Plasencias, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm probably not. But head of international relations for SITMA, just wanted to thank you as well for your participation. I don't think we gave you a proper introduction or a chance to introduce yourself. So if you'd like to say a few words, please take the floor.
Ernesto?
Yes, just to thanks all the organizers. We've been in contact, in direct contact with Vernon. Well, later, a few minutes ago with Ramon before the starting of this conference. And just to thank you as well, Brian, for being so active and in the organization of this video conference. I hope to be not the first one, just the first of many other conference we're gonna have during the next year, because I believe it will be, no matters the results in the elections, in midterms elections in the US, I think we have to continue working and to do our best to continue building this nice bridge between our both countries, which I know the American people have been always clearly close and interested to have normal links with Cuba, and from our side, the same position, just to have a normal links with the US is, for example, our natural market. We share common love for music, for baseball, for many things that we have in common, and this paved the way and facilitates the avenue to continue building and strengthening a good, let's say, good relationship between our both countries. I know this will come sooner than later, and just continue working on this regard. And finally, again, to thank you for all this effort, and even for granting us the opportunity, because we didn't have the opportunity on September 28th, because we were facing a huge difficulties because Ian hurricane, and just for giving us this new opportunity to exchange our views and on the climate change, the response to our communities, and how both countries can manage and can work together to minimize the impact of this reality that is called climate change. And finally, always when I am talking about climate and US and the relationship with the US, and always comes to my mind Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro, that he was always very aware of the importance of having a normal and good relationship with the US. So we hope the future belong to us, to the people who wants an engagement, the people who wants a normal relationship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ernesto. I think that's very well said. And I always like to remind people of a poll that was taken just a year after former President Obama did not do enough, but did some work to open relations and move towards normalization of relations between the United States and Cuba. And in that poll, 75% of the American people approved of normalizing relations with Cuba, including 61% of Republicans. So the people are there, and we need to use that to push our government, which is dragging its feet, because when neighbors don't talk, it's really a shame. I think that applies to nations as well as to people. So I want to thank you and just say that, yes, this should be the first of many such programs. And just to mention again, that if you're interested in meeting up in person and you're in Massachusetts on November 27th at 2 p.m., that's a Sunday, in Cambridge and Harvard Square, we're going to be doing a public action to call for an end to the blockade. And out in the western part of the state, in Holyoke, at the corner of Route 5 and Route 91, they will be doing the same. That's November 27th at 2 p.m. That's a Sunday. And we have committed to doing that every month from now until we finally have an end to this brutal and embarrassing policy that is the embargo, the blockade of Cuba. So I encourage you all to come out and join us on the streets as well. It's good to see you virtually. But I do want to turn it over to Sam. If you could say a few words about Crew and how people can find out about your work and join in, if you're willing.
Of course. Yeah, Crew is so happy to help hold this event for everyone. I will put the link to our website in our chat so you can check us out. But we're really hoping to create climate resilience in our communities and hope that this event can be one step towards that.
Thanks, Sam, and thank you so much for running the technology for us and making this this all possible. I also want to thank Ramon for your interpretation and translation. Like I said before, we couldn't do it without you, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. And to Ernesto and Jessica, thank you for sharing what Cuba is doing in the face of this threat to us all, that is climate catastrophe. Thank you for your work. Keep doing it. And like you said, I think this is only going to be the first of many such exchanges. So I look forward to working with you in the future. And lastly, thanks to our audience. And I encourage you, once we get the recording of this up and out, to share it with your friends and your colleagues and your networks, generally just to get the word out about this. Because, you know, like I said, the people are with us in terms of ending our policy that is really preventing us from working with our friends in Cuba to fight pending climate catastrophe. So thank you again for your time and for sharing your work with us. Much appreciated. Muchas gracias. And with that, I will say good night to you all.
Thank you. Thank you to you all.
Gracias. Thank you. Bye.